you. I was 32, and I had it all. 7-figure business, the house, the cars, the toys, and it didn't matter. I told everybody I was happy, and I wasn't. I had serious problems. Just a couple years before, I had lost both of my parents tragically, and I did not know how to deal with that, so I balled it up and pushed it down, and I kept running. And then the economy tanked, and my customers stopped paying or went bankrupt, and I was going further and further and further into debt just to make payroll. And so I kept running. And I didn't know how to share it with anybody. My friends had no idea what was going on because my ego wouldn't allow me to tell them that I was failing, and I felt alone. I felt empty. And then I had this Halloween party. And my friend Bob came up to me and says, "Man, you know, you're a bit crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm a little crazy." He says, "You need to drive an ambulance from the UK to Mongolia." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" No. There's these guys called the Adventurous, and they do this adventure, and it is you. You'd love it. And I'm thinking, are you serious? I'm hanging on by a thread. There's no way. No, someday, maybe. And so I refused. And things got worse. And darker. I finally got to a point, I'm like, you know what? If this is the way I'm going out, I'm going to have one last adventure before I do so. So I did what any sane person would do. I prepared to leave, and I bought an ambulance. And I took 2 friends, and we went to the UK, and we drove it through Europe to Amsterdam. We partied in Prague. We went to Poland, went up through Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, and then we got to Russia. And here we had a choice to make. See, we were running late. We had 10 days left on our visa. We didn't know if Russia would let us out if we overextended our visa when we got to the Mongolian border. I figured, how hard can it be, right? Have you ever heard anybody use the expression, hold my beer, I got this, right? Well, hold my beer, I got this. When we got into Russia, it was a whole new world. Different alphabet, different language. We were completely lost all the time. The roads were so bad that we were going only about half the speed we were going before. It started tearing up the ambulance. These police would pull us over for bribes. We almost got mugged in Novosibirsk. And then 10 minutes before the border closed on the last day of our visa, we made it through. And I remember sailing through no man's land and seeing the vista of Mongolia come out ahead of us and thinking, we did it. Well, we've only got about 1,200 miles left to go. How hard can this be, right? Hold my beer, I got this. That's when things got really rough because now there were no roads. So we were stuck going 8 or 9 miles per hour in this ambulance. It was like, and if we went any faster, it just started falling apart. We had a door fall off, stuff like that. And I just lost it, 8 or 9 miles per hour, and I've got 1,000 miles to go. How the hell am I going to get to the end? And it just wore on me. We would wake up, fix the ambulance, drive, fix the ambulance, drive, find something to eat, fix the ambulance, drive, fix the ambulance, find someplace to sleep, over and over and over again. And it wore me down until eventually I had to surrender. And that was when things changed. The challenges didn't get easier, but they became different. We lost all brakes. I mean 0 brakes for 1,000 miles. So what? We got a manual transmission. We can make this work. Lost the starter? Well, we just won't turn the ambulance off, or we'll stop on hills and push start it. All right. No lights? Well, we've got a spotlight. We can wire that to the cigarette lighter, and if Dan holds it out the window, we can kind of see where we're going. So that's where we were. And then it was one night in the Gobi Desert, we're going along. No lights. Dan's there holding the light out the window so we can kind of see. It's raining, can barely see what's going on, and I'm focusing on the road, and then it turns, and I don't see the turn, but there's no brakes anyways, and I crash the ambulance. And that was a turning point. That was the point at which Dan decided that he had had enough, and I don't blame him. And we found him a bus, and he went home. But in that same village near where we crashed, there was this beautiful man Bolt. And he helped us find the parts for the ambulance. And he helped us into his home. And he fed us and introduced us to his family. His sister was the international ping pong champion based in Mongolia, right? And she was proud of this. And I don't remember feeling that warm or cared for or rejuvenated in so long. And so Steve and I continued on and got a little easier, went a little faster, a little easier, a little faster, a little easier, a little faster. And finally we hit this paved road. A paved road? Hell yeah. Pedal to the metal. We are taking this thing all the way home. And we are cruising on this road. And then 200 miles outside of Ulaanbaatar, boom. I blew the engine. After this entire trip, after everything that we'd been through, are you kidding me? Now I wasn't going to make it to the end? We came up with a plan. Steve hitchhiked into Ulaanbaatar. I stayed there with the ambulance. And I had a long day there alone with my thoughts. My sister had given me this little glass thing. I don't even know what to call it. It had a picture of my parents on it, and I brought it out. And I went to the Gobi Desert, and I buried it. And for the first time, I grieved for them. And I cried, and I broke down. I realized just how unhappy I'd been for so long. And then I thought about this adventure and how challenging it was, but how fulfilling it was. And then I knew the fundamental change that I needed to make in my life. See, we are running on the wrong fuel. We're driven by ego and ambition, and it is causing these epidemic of isolation and depression and suicide and everything else that's going on in our lives because it is based in fear. It's based in the fear that we are not enough. And so we do more, want more money, more things, more recognition, more awards, trying to fill that hole. And all it does is get emptier and emptier. And if we run on that fuel too hard and too long, we crash. I know. So what's the alternative? The alternative is fulfillment. Now, fulfillment sounds like one of those flu words, right? And it's not happiness and joy and unicorns farting glitter all over the place. Like, fulfillment is based in things like mastery, right? Finding something that is challenging and hard, but we want to do over and over and over again because we enjoy the process of getting better regardless of how hard it is. It's based in connection, the connection to ourselves and our relationships with others. That's not easy. And it's based in service, right? Being able to take those gifts, those skills, those connections, those relationships in service of others. And fulfillment fills us up. Fulfilled. It's an infinite fuel, and it can run us for the rest of our lives. So how do you get a bit more fulfillment into your life? Like, what is the one thing you can do today? Simple, not always easy. And it's to commit to creating a practice, a rhythm of space and awareness in your life. So whether it's walking, journaling, meditating, driving, whatever it is for you, you have to commit to it, you have to do it regularly, and you have to consciously become aware while you're doing that, and just think, what were the things I've done in my life where I felt a little more full, just a little better? Do that a few times, and you'll begin to develop this awareness where you're kind of aware of it in the moment. You're like, I kind of like this thing I'm doing. And that will begin to shift your actions. And you will start doing more things that fill you up, and consequently less things that empty you out. And that's how you can begin this shift today and do it over time rather than having to crash and hit rock bottom. So back to the desert. I had found peace. And then my friend Steve rolls up. And it's not with this janky tow truck that I think he's going to have. He shows up with a truck with this long trailer with a crane. No joke. This crane leans over and picks up the ambulance, lifts it over, and onto the trailer. I couldn't make this shit up. So I'm thinking, okay. And then they grab us and they say, hide in the ambulance. We're like, why? Because we need to smuggle you into Ulaanbaatar. Why? They never told us. I have no idea why, but I was smuggled into Ulaanbaatar. And I had the best shower of my life that night. And I just knew, I felt, my life would never be the same. And it wasn't. It was better. Not perfect, but better. My relationships, not perfect, but better. My business, without all that pressure and without me and all the problems I brought to it, it flourished. We hit 8 figures for the first time. Why? Because these things are not mutually exclusive. You don't have to choose life or business. There are ways to have both, but you need to have your priorities set. I share this story because I truly know what it's like to be empty. And I understand what's through that door and what's possible with fulfillment. We talked about the caustic nature and what it's causing in our society of this ego-driven fuel we're on. We talked about what's possible when we swap to fulfillment fuel. We talked about the one change that you can make in your life today, that commitment to a rhythm of space and awareness in order to bring that change into your life. My hope is that each of you will choose fulfillment as fuel for yourselves, your families, and your businesses. Because we can create a better world while being better to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, brothers. Awesome job.